You bought a bag of lemons on Tuesday. 10 of them, bright and firm and yellow, $4 at the grocery store. By Saturday, 2 of them have a soft brown spot near the stem. By the next Wednesday, one has collapsed into itself with a fuzz of white mold, and the juice is leaking through the mesh bag onto the bottom of your refrigerator drawer. You throw 3 of them in the trash. You used 4. 3 more are heading the same way, going soft in your hand when you squeeze them. So you do what everyone does. You stop buying lemons unless you have a reason. They become a thing you pick up for a single recipe and watch rot before you get to the second one. You buy 3 when you need 2 because you already know one of them will not make it. And the whole time, that bag in the drawer is telling you a lie. That lemons are fragile, that they spoil fast, that there is nothing you can do about it but use them quick or lose them. Now I want you to sit with this. A lemon picked off the tree in California in January can be made to last until the following January. A full year. Not in a freezer, not with a single machine, not with one thing you cannot buy at any store or make on your own kitchen table. The women who ran farm kitchens in this country before there was electricity in them knew how to take a crate of citrus that came up on the train in the dead of winter and stretch it across the seasons until the next crate came. They had to. There was no other way to have a lemon in July. A lemon was a luxury that arrived a few times a year, and a woman who let one rot was a woman who would not see another for a long while. And every method they used is simple, and not one of them is hard. And any person watching this can learn the whole set in the time it takes to put away a bag of groceries. I am Jonas Miller. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We do not grow lemons here. The winters would kill the trees in a single night, and our growing season is meant for corn and hay and the kitchen garden, not for citrus. But lemons and oranges have come into Amish kitchens by wagon and by train and by the back of a neighbor's truck for the better part of 200 years. And a kitchen with no refrigerator in it learns fast how to keep what it cannot grow. My wife Esther keeps lemons in this house from one winter clear through to the next, and her mother kept them the same way, and her mother before her. I am going to walk you through every method they use, in the order we reach for them, and by the end you will never look at a bag of lemons the same way again. But before the methods, you have to understand the enemy. Because if you do not know why a lemon rots, none of the rest will make sense to you. So let me start there. A lemon is mostly water. About 88% of its weight is water, locked inside the flesh and held there by a peel that nature built to protect it. That peel is your friend. It is a living, breathing armor. The trouble starts the moment the fruit leaves the tree, because 2 enemies begin working against it at once, and they pull in opposite directions. The first enemy is moisture loss. The lemon breathes through thousands of tiny pores in its skin, the same way a leaf breathes, and through those pores it slowly gives up its water to the dry air around it. The drier the air, the faster it loses. That is why a lemon forgotten in the back of a cupboard turns hard and light as a stone and rattles when you shake it. The juice did not go bad, it simply left, evaporated away through the skin a little at a time over weeks, until there was nothing inside but dry pulp. The second enemy is the exact opposite. Too much moisture in the wrong place. Where a lemon touches another lemon or sits in a warm pocket of trapped damp air with no movement, mold takes hold. Mold is a living thing, and like any living thing it needs 3 things to grow: moisture, warmth, and air. Give it a soft spot on a crowded lemon in a warm kitchen, and it will spread from one fruit to the next like fire through dry grass. One bad lemon in a bag will take the whole bag down with it, because the mold on the first one is reaching for the second before you ever notice the spot. So now you can see the whole problem laid out plain. Lose too much moisture and the lemon dries to a stone. Hold too much in the wrong place and it rots to mush. Every method I am about to show you does one of 2 things, and only one of 2 things. It either holds the lemon's own water inside the peel where it belongs, or it keeps the outside dry and the fruits apart so the mold can never get its start. Keep the water in, keep the rot out. That is the whole game, beginning to end. Once you have that fixed in your mind, the methods almost teach themselves. The first method, and the one Esther reaches for most, is sand. This is the old root cellar trick, the same one we use for carrots and beets and turnips, and it works on lemons every bit as well. You take a wooden box or a clay crock, anything that is not metal, because metal sweats and rusts, and you pour in a layer of clean, dry sand about 2 inches deep across the bottom. Then you lay your lemons down on that bed of sand, and here's the important part. Not one of them touches another. You leave a finger's width of space between each fruit. Then you pour more sand over the top until they are buried and you cannot see them anymore. And on top of that buried layer, you start another, lemons spaced apart, sand poured over, until the box is full. You carry that box down to somewhere cool and dark, a cellar, a basement, an unheated back pantry, a closet against an outside wall, anywhere that stays steady between 50 and 55 degrees and never sees the sun. What is the sand actually doing for you? Two things at once, and both of them matter. First, it holds every lemon apart from every other lemon, which means that if one fruit does go bad down in the box, its rot has nowhere to travel. It cannot touch its neighbor, so it cannot spread. You lose the one and save the rest, instead of losing all of them at once. Second, the sand wraps each lemon in a still, stable pocket of fine grains that hold the air motionless around it. That stillness is the secret. The sand draws away just enough surface dampness to keep mold from ever getting a foothold, while at the same time, the packed grains keep the dry cellar air from reaching the peel and pulling the water out of it. The lemon sits in a kind of suspended calm, neither drying out nor rotting, and lemons stored this way will keep 3 months, 4, sometimes longer than that. When you want one, you reach into the box, brush off the sand, rinse it under the tap, and you have a lemon as good as the day it went in. Have you ever opened a bag of lemons and found half of them soft all at the same time, like they all gave up together? Stored in sand, that simply never happens, because they were never touching to begin with, so they could never take each other down. The second method needs nothing in the world but water and a jar, and it surprises folks every single time I describe it. You take your whole lemons, you set them in a glass jar or a deep bowl, you cover them completely with cold water until not one of them is showing above the surface. You put a lid or a plate on top, and you set it in the cellar or down in the bottom drawer of the refrigerator. Every few days you pour off the old water and pour in fresh. That is the entire method. There is nothing more to it. Now it sounds backward, I know. Water is the very thing I just told you causes mold. But think it through. A lemon held completely underwater cannot lose its moisture to the air, because there is no air touching its skin to pull the water out. The peel stays soft and supple, the juice inside stays full and heavy, and the fruit does not dry out a particle. And mold, remember mold needs air to grow. It needs oxygen the same as you do. A lemon held underwater is cut off from the air entirely, so the mold cannot get started either. You have shut down both enemies at once with nothing but a jar of water and the small trouble of changing it twice a week. Lemons kept this way stay juicy and bright and heavy for weeks past the day they would have gone hard and useless, sitting out on the counter. Esther keeps a jar of them going on the cellar steps right through the cold months. The third method is oil, and this one is for the lemons you mean to keep for the long haul. You take a clean, completely dry lemon and you rub it all over with a thin film of cooking oil. Any neutral oil you have on hand will do the job, nothing fancy. Just a light coat, rubbed in with your fingers until the whole skin has a faint shine to it. Then you store it cool and dark like the others. What that oil does is seal up those thousands of tiny breathing pores in the peel, the very pores the lemon was using to give up its water to the air. Sealed over, the lemon can no longer breathe out its moisture, so it cannot dry out. And the same thin coat of oil also keeps mold spores from settling and taking root on the slick surface. You have plugged the leaks and locked the door in one motion. And this is the very same principle behind the fourth method, which is wax. A light coat of melted beeswax, brushed on while it is warm and let to harden into a thin shell, does exactly the same job as the oil, only it lasts longer and seals tighter. And here is something the grocery store would rather you not think too hard about. That shiny coat on the lemons you buy, the one that makes them gleam under the store lights, that is wax. They spray it on every piece of citrus that comes through, a commercial wax, to keep it from drying out on the long trip and the long sit in the bin, and they never say a word about it. The old farm kitchen did the very same thing 100 years before the grocery chains existed. They just did it with the beeswax off their own hives, at their own table, for their own family. Let me pause here for a moment, because I want to say something plain. The reason you were never taught any of this is the same reason behind a lot of what I share on this channel. There is no money in a lemon that lasts a year. The store would far rather sell you a fresh bag every 2 weeks and let the old one rot in your drawer where you cannot see it happening until it is too late. A kitchen that wastes nothing is a kitchen that buys less, and a kitchen that buys less is not the kind of customer the grocery chains are built to keep. So the knowledge of how to keep a thing, how to make food last the way our grandmothers made it last, quietly stopped being passed down, because it was worth more to somebody for us to forget it than to remember it. Esther and I have put the whole of these old kitchen methods together for the folks who want the long version. The link is in the description. And if this is the kind of knowledge you have been hungry for, the best thing you can do is subscribe so the next one finds its way to you. I will not mention it again. The fifth method is the simplest of them all, and it is the one nearly every one of you can start this very night, with no sand and no oil and no jar. Cool and dark and apart. Most folks keep their lemons in a pretty bowl on the kitchen counter, sitting in the warm air, in the full light of the window, all piled up against one another in a heap. That is, without exaggeration, the single worst place in the entire house for them. The warmth speeds the rot, the light tires the peel, and the piling up means every lemon is touching its neighbors, so that one soft spot becomes 6. Move them off that counter and into the coldest, darkest corner you have, a cellar shelf, the back of a low cupboard against an outer wall, the bottom of the refrigerator, and lay them out in a single layer so that no two of them touch. Do nothing else. That alone will double or triple how long they last, simply by taking away the warmth and the light and the crowding that were quietly killing them. Now we come to the methods that do not store the lemon at all. Instead, they change it into something else, something that cannot rot, because it is no longer a lemon sitting on a shelf waiting to turn. This is where the old farm kitchen truly beat the seasons, and it is where you can take a fruit that arrives once or twice a year and make it serve you straight through to the next harvest. The first and the oldest of these is salt. Preserved lemons are one of the great kitchen secrets of the world. Cooks across North Africa and the Mediterranean have kept lemons this way for many hundreds of years, and a jar of them will hold a year or more, with no machine and no cold storage at all. Here's how it goes. You cut each lemon down through the top most of the way, leaving it joined at the bottom so it opens like a flower. You pack coarse salt down inside the cuts and rub it over the outside, a generous, unembarrassed amount of it. Then you press the salted lemons down hard into a clean glass jar, pushing and crushing until their own juice is forced up and out and begins to rise and cover them. You keep pressing more in, and if the juice does not climb high enough to cover the top fruit, you squeeze a few more lemons and pour that juice in until every last bit of peel is held under the surface. Then you seal the jar and set it in a cool place, and you wait. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The salt pulls the water out, and the lemon's own acid sharpens the brine, and together they make a place where nothing harmful can take hold. The same way salt has kept meat and fish safe for thousands of years before any of us were born. After a month, the peel has gone soft and silky and deep and complex in flavor, and that jar will outlast the whole winter and most of the spring beside it. Salt does not merely slow the rot down, it stops it cold and keeps it stopped. What about the juice itself, the part you actually want most of the time? A lemon you cannot keep whole, you can still keep as juice. You squeeze your lemons the day before they would have turned, and you pour that juice into an ice cube tray and set it in the freezer. 1 cube comes out close enough to the juice of half a lemon for any recipe in the book. Once they are frozen hard, you pop them out, drop them in a bag, and keep them in the freezer, and you have fresh, bright lemon juice on hand any day of the year for a roast, a dressing, a pie, a glass of water. And if you have no freezer at all, as we do not in this house, you do what Esther does. You cook the juice down with sugar into a strong, thick lemon syrup, and that syrup holds for months on the cellar shelf in a sealed jar. Come the heat of August, a spoonful of it in a glass of cold well water makes lemonade from fruit that came up the railway line back in January. And here's the part that nearly everyone throws straight into the compost bucket without a second thought: the peel. The peel is the most valuable part of the whole fruit, and the truth is, it keeps better and longer than any other part of it. Before you ever cut a lemon, take the bright yellow zest off the outside with a fine grater, just the colored layer, not the bitter white beneath it. Spread that zest on a plate and set it in a sunny window, or in an oven turned to its lowest breath of warmth, and let it dry until it crumbles between your fingers. Dried lemon zest kept in a small jar holds its bright flavor for a full year, and a pinch of it will lift a roast chicken, a pot of rice, a winter cake, a cup of tea. The peels left over after juicing, the spent halves, you can candy and sugar for the children, or simply dry for the same use, and in the end, nothing at all is wasted. 1 single lemon, used the old way, gives you juice and zest and peel and a brightness that reaches clear across 4 seasons of cooking. The bag you threw in the trash gave you 4 lemons and a sticky mess in the bottom of the drawer. So look now at everything we have walked through together. Sand, to hold them apart and cool and still. Water, to lock the moisture in and shut the air out. Oil and wax, to seal the breathing peel against both enemies at once. Cool and dark and apart, the free method that asks nothing of you, and that any one of you can begin tonight. Salt, to preserve them whole for a year and more. Frozen juice and lemon syrup, to keep the heart of the fruit. And dried zest and candied peel, so that not one scrap of it is ever lost. A person who learns this whole set will never again stand at the refrigerator drawer looking down at a bag of lemons gone soft and brown, and will never again pay good money for fresh fruit, only to carry the better part of it out to the trash. And here's what I want you to understand about why this knowledge faded out of our kitchens. The people who built this country with their hands could not run to a store every week, and they could not afford to throw food away, because every bit of it had been bought with hard money or grown with harder work. So they learned to keep things. They learned, through plain necessity, that a lemon is not a fragile thing at all, that it is in fact one of the easiest fruits in all the world to store, once you understand the two simple things it needs. We did not forget that because it stopped being true. We forgot it because somewhere along the way it became more profitable for somebody else if we did. So here's what I want you to do this week. The next time you buy a bag of lemons, do not pile them in a warm bowl on the counter the way you always have. Take 3 of them and try one method each. Put a couple in a jar of water down where it is cool. Rub 1 or 2 with a film of oil and tuck them into the darkest corner you can find. And take one and start your very first jar of preserved lemons with nothing but coarse salt and a little patience. Then come back in a month and see for yourself. See which lemons are still good and sound, and think about how long ago the ones in the drawer would have been gone. Once you have watched with your own eyes a lemon last a whole season instead of a single week, you will never buy them the same careless way again. Tell me down in the comments below which of these methods you had never once heard of before. The sand, the water jar, the oil and the wax, the salt. And if your grandmother or your mother had her own particular way of keeping fruit through the long winter, I want you to share it, because those small kitchen tricks are exactly the kind of knowledge that vanishes for good when nobody troubles to write it down. I read every single one that comes in. Next time, since we have been speaking of keeping the fruit you bring home, I'm going to show you the old way my people keep apples all winter long down in the root cellar, the straw, the wooden crates, the way they are laid, and the one strict rule about which apple you must never, ever store beside the others if you want any of them to last. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, keep them cool, keep them apart, and remember that a lemon was never meant to rot in a week in the bottom of a drawer. We only forgot how to keep it, and now you know.